Good evening, everyone. My lord, my ladies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the launch of Bobby Singh Bansal's latest book, The Punjab Chiefs, The Lost Glory of the Punjab Aristocracy in India and Pakistan. My name is Verma, and I'm your MC for this evening. And first and foremost, I would like to thank you to everyone making the time, coming down and making time in your busy schedule to attend this very important book launch. Here at the Nehru Arts Centre, the cultural wing of the Indian High Commission. And may I introduce the Deputy Director of the Arts Centre, Mr. Sanjay Sharma, to say a few words.
Sat Sri Akal and very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Nehru Center. Today we all have gathered for book launch of Mr. Bobby Singh Bansal, entitled The Punjab Chiefs. Bobby Singh Bansal has authored a finest book. The book is about the lost glory of the Punjab aristocracy in India and Pakistan. The author aspired to update the work of Griffin and Massey, who documented the chiefs of Punjab in the version of 1890 and 1909. Over 70 families of the then chiefs of Maharaja Ranjit Singh found their way in his book, stretching from Lahore in Pakistan to Delhi in India. The author has successfully launched this book in 4 continents, providing an account of a ruler who governed the Sikh Empire in the 19th century. The book gives readers an insight into the lineage of Maharaja Ranjit Singhs, who ruled the Sikh Empire from 1799 to 1849. The book also digs into the lives of the Muslims, Hindus, and Sikh courtiers that served Maharaja Ranjit Singh in the early 19th century. You can imagine the time and money and labor he has put into this book. He had made several trips over 5 years of his research and acquired material, a process he described as hectic and tedious. He met the families featured in this book, spent hours with them, and shared many stories that had been passed down by their forefathers, which had never been shared or told. Mr. Bansal paints a compelling portrait of the powerful families of the Lahore Darbar, including Maharaja Ranjit Singh's family. A rich tapestry of historical accounts, personal anecdote, pictures, and nostalgia. It is also a tribute to long-served ties and cruelly uprooted roots. Mr. Bansal has not only excavated history, but he has also excavated emotions, traditions, associations, and bring together erstwhile royal families. I will not take much of your time. I would like to invite our MC to carry forward the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Director. I mean, there's so much to learn from this book. I've been lucky to have an advanced copy and to read about the rich Punjab aristocracy and the court life in the former undivided Punjab. These influential people, along with their families, enjoyed their rise to power under their sovereign Maharaja Ranjit Singh at the court of Lahore, and were all faiths and castes, be they Hindu, Muslim, or Sikh. They became the social elite, and their rise to this power at the Sikh court was to such an extent that some even became part of the Punjab royalty. The Punjab Chief's book is simply an astounding book, a collector's special edition packed of 532 pages of information, images, and family trees. As the Deputy Director said, the book has already successfully launched in Punjab, both in Amritsar and Chandigarh in April this year. It will be launched in Washington, D.C. in the prestigious Library of Congress on the 13th of July, and then in LA on the 16th of July, and then in San Francisco on the 22nd of July. Speaking this evening, we have a stellar lineup of esteemed invited guests, starting with Baroness Verma, who will formally introduce Bobby Bansal, the author of the book. She will be followed by Lord Sheikh, and then finally Dr. Chopra, who has flown into the UK, especially to attend tonight's book launch, and then followed by closing remarks by myself. So we will begin, though, with a short video on Bobby Bansal, the author.
Bobby Singh Bansal. Bobby Singh Bansal is an award-winning writer and filmmaker. Growing up in the United Kingdom, his intense drive to learn more about his culture and heritage led him to undertake extensive research about the reign of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and the European officers that served in the court of Lahore. His first book, The Lions Firungis, Europeans at the Court of Lahore, was published in 2010 and has since received 7 international awards in the United States, France, India, and the UK. Bobby has a passion for restoring historic Sikh-era monuments in Pakistan. In 2003, he established the Sarkar Khalsa Foundation to restore Sikh monuments that have been abandoned or vandalized in Pakistan. Some of these initiatives include work on the Palace of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, located on the banks of the Chenab River, the erection of a boundary wall around the tomb of Maharaja Sher Singh in Lahore, and fully restoring tombs of 3 Sikh soldiers associated with the Anglo-Sikh Wars of 1848 near Ramnagar. The Sikhs of Kabul, a forgotten community, is Bobby's documentary film debut. Filmed entirely in Afghanistan, the film has received praise at the Iceland Documentary Film Festival, Punjabi International Film Festival in Toronto, and Sikh Arts Film Festival in New York in 2012. Currently, Bobby is working on his next book, Remnants of the Sikh Empire, as well as several major documentary projects, including the Persian Sikhs and From the Khyber Pass to Kabul.
Very often the feature film industry overshadows the short film industry or the documentary film industry. We have a gentleman here who is a great writer. He's also a successful filmmaker, but he specializes in the field of documentaries and short films. He was born and brought up in England, but he went around the world. He's done extensive research at such a young age, and he's done a fabulous job in terms of producing some of the finest documentaries. We'd like to welcome to the program Mr. Bobby Singh Bansal.
So much of the history we read about India is centered on Delhi and the rulers of Delhi. And often even the Punjab, so close to Delhi, gets left out of the picture, never mind the Deccan or South India. Bobby Singh Bansal has done so much to popularise the history of the Punjab, particularly during the reign of Ranjit Singh, particularly the work of the Lions Firungis and his work on the chiefs of North India. It's great work, and I hugely commend him for all he's done.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Lovely to see the late Kapani and William Dalrymple as well on the video. May I call upon Bobby Bansal to the stage, please, as well as Baroness Verma, Lord Sheikh, and Dr. Chopra, please. Baroness Sandeep Verma was born in the holy city of Amritsar, Punjab, India, and moved to the UK with her parents when she was 1 year old. In 2006, she was raised to the peerage as Baroness Verma of Leicester. She was opposition whip from 2006 to 2010, and then Conservative government whip following the 2010 general election. Furthermore, prior to her becoming Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for the DCC, Baroness Verma was spokesperson for the Cabinet Office, the International Development, Women and Equalities, and the Business Innovation Skills, all very relevant and important issues still today. Baroness Verma, please.
You know, these stages are always made for men. The platforms are so high. Can you actually see me? Good. Well, it's a great honor and a great pleasure to be here, not because the book is so brilliant, but because the person behind the book is absolutely amazingly brilliant. And before I start, I want all of us to recognize the brilliant work that Bobby Singh Bansal has done. Please, please start by giving him. We've known Bobby a very, very long time, and in all of the time we've known Bobby and his wife Harvinder, without whom he could not have done all of this hard work, and of course his two phenomenal sons that are also sitting there. Actually, I've known them since they were that high, and now they're taller than I am, but that's not difficult. It is great to be here today because I've been given the privilege as well, Amrit, to have the book, and it's an eye-opener. It really should be in everybody's home, because this is a book that reminds us of the greatness of the ancestral history we all share. And if we cannot support one person whose journey for the last 5-10 years has been to bring this history collectively together in a book, then really as a community we need to do some inward reflection. I saw Bobby and his dedication from many, many years, and it's sacrifice that you have to make. And Bobby, your sacrifice has been amazingly hard work, but hidden through the smile and the pleasure that you've given to all of us through your writings, your filmmaking, and the collection of history. And I would urge each and every one of you here today, first of all, to ensure that you take a book home, but not only take a book home for yourselves, but make sure that people that know about this book also have this book. This is something that I call the memoir that you will keep in your homes as a reminder to everyone about where they come from, who we are, and how easily history is lost if there are not people protecting it. And that's what's happening in Afghanistan at the moment. Our history is being bulleted away, destroyed. And Bobby, it's only because you have captured these things that we will know it exists. So for all of us, it is a duty to support the great work of an incredibly great human being. And all the recognitions and all the accolades that Bobby has received on his way are absolutely minuscule to the level of work that he's produced. Now, Bobby Singh, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's a British-born Sikh historian, writer, and documentary filmmaker who studied business management and economics in England. But you know, after completing all of that, his passion has always lain within Sikh history, Anglo-Sikh history, and the culture that has enabled all of us to be able to share this evening here today. I mean, he's a passionate advocate of promoting heritage and culture on a global scale to foster what I believe is the greatest soft skill ever, and that is a real understanding between multicultural societies on a global level. He's been recognized globally, as you saw in the film. But what is Bobby? Who is Bobby? And why is Bobby doing what he does is something that only Bobby can tell you. So I really don't want to take up the platform for the man that actually has brought us all here together. But I do know that each and every one of us sitting here, and I've spoken to many people over the weekend. Bobby came to see me and give me the book on Friday. Ashok and I saw the book on Friday. And the first thing we did was we started ringing people up and saying, do you know there's this amazing book that needs to be in everybody's house? So today, there is a pledge from all of you to make sure we are the biggest promoting ambassadors of the book. It isn't, actually, it's so not costly, Bobby, because what you've captured, and if we pay £75 for it, and look at the history that we're going to store in our homes, but actually the pride we take away with us, that £75 to me will be worth millions and millions of big, genuine reflections of our history that I don't think money can buy. So please, please, please remember this. Do not come here just to hear us speak, but about taking this message of our brilliant history to everyone else. So thank you very much. I can hear a baby. Is there a baby in the house? Fantastic. Because to engage a baby at this age and to show the baby this history is the biggest gift that that parent can give that baby. So if I could introduce the fabulous, the brilliant, the most amazing young man that we have the privilege of knowing, Bobby Singh Bansal.
Wow, how do I follow that? Oh, amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I just want to just thank you for all being here, because your presence, it's not a book launch. This is an historical day. I was in Chandigarh just a few weeks back and it was overwhelming. And I was not sure to do it in London. And we were supposed to launch this book in 2020. And as we know, this wretched pandemic came across us. But as they say in English, better late than never. And I stand here before you and I'm humbled at the kind words that Baroness Verma has just spoken about me. I feel blessed to stand here because each one of you is testimony to the work I've done. And to be here present, I'm humbled. My journey's been very up and down, very hectic. And I've got to thank one person, that's my wife and my two sons, who've put up with my absences over the years of just at short notice flying over to India or Pakistan. The amount of lies I've had to tell them, the amount of excuses that I'm just nipping across to Lahore or to Delhi for a few days and end up there 3 weeks. But what can I do? It's like Baroness Verma said, it's that passion inside me. It's that, I think Waheguru has given me that contract. That, Bobby Singh, you're going to do this. Tu si karna hai kaam. And so, I don't think anything about it. I mean, going to Afghanistan, for example, I never thought 2 winks about going to Afghanistan and other places, because that's who I am, and I love doing this subject. It's something that brings me pleasure. And if I can motivate the next generation of researchers and students, then I think I've done my job. Why I did this book? There's a simple reason. The last edition came out in 1940. Since 1940, there's been no updates. So we have an 82-year gap in that vital history. Then we have the Punjab partition, where most of the families have been uprooted. Where did they all end up? I was intrigued. So when I did this book in 2010 about the Europeans at the court of Lahore, I tracked down the Europeans. But then what happened to the native noble and courtiers, and where did they end up? So this 82-year gap was frustrating me. So I thought, well, if I can do that, let's work on this project. And it was a very, very difficult project because it's traveling over 5 years, meeting the families in the villages. I thought it was important to document this for the next generation. I'm not going to say too much because I think Baroness Verma said more than enough. I think the video has said a lot about me. I just want to say a quick thank you to all my guests who are on stage, especially those who have flown in today. Dr. Chopra, thank you for coming from Kenya. Ranveer Singh was flown in from Delhi. I'm humbled at the people that I know who are my friends, who I can call my friends, who I can call, like I called Baroness Verma on the phone. When do you want us to come, Bobby? I feel so proud that I know people like yourselves who are here today. And this is what makes this event special, getting together and sharing that work. And that's what it's all about, sharing the work that I do, and it gives me pleasure. So I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to give that time to my guest on stage. I'm just going to say a big, big thank you to everyone here and to the members who have come from the Midlands of my society, the Punjabi Arts and Literary Academy, who are all in full strength today. And I hope you enjoy the evening, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Bobby, and thank you, Baroness Verma, for inspiring words. And I believe Baroness Verma would like to say a big thank you to the crowd of people who've come down from Leicester, Mr. Resham Singh Sandhu, and the Bansal family as well. So please, thank you for coming down. Thank you. I'd now like to call upon Lord Sheikh. Lord Mohammed Sheikh of Cornhill in the City of London is a successful and accomplished businessman, philanthropist, academic and writer. He's also a prominent promoter of interfaith activities, and even in 2017 Lord Sheikh published his first book, The Emperor of the Five Rivers, The Life and Times of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And in this book, Lord Sheikh explored a phenomenal leader, highlighting Ranjit Singh's personal characteristics and leadership skills. A man who single-handedly created and sustained a secular empire. In fact, a recent BBC poll named Maharaja Ranjit Singh as the greatest world leader of all time, and Lord Sheikh's book was extremely well received. So therefore, Lord Sheikh, may I call you upon the stage?
Baroness Verma, Sardar Bobby Singh Bansal, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, Sat Sri Akal, Namaskar, Assalamu Alaikum. I would like to thank Bobby Singh Bansal for asking me to speak at the launch of his splendid and indeed grand book titled The Punjab Chiefs. The book relates to the lost glory of the Punjab aristocracy in India and Pakistan. The book catalogues numerous aristocratic families associated with the reign of Maharaja Ranjit Singh during the 19th century. I'll talk more about the book later on. I first met Bobby when he was speaking about his marvelous book titled Remnants of Sikh Empire, which relates to historic Sikh monuments in India and Pakistan. I would like to emphasize, being a writer, I can see another writer if he is good. And I'd like to say, Bobby is indeed a distinguished writer, historian, and documentary filmmaker. His other books include the fascinating stories of Europeans in the court of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. The book is titled The Lions Farangis. Farangis mean the Europeans. So the lion, of course, was Maharaja Ranjit Singh. As we have heard, his documentary films include the Sikhs of Kabul, and the Baroness had referred to what's happening in Afghanistan. I think, Bobby, you've captured the history before things have gone wrong. The Road to Mandalay. Lovely title, The Road to Mandalay, undoubtedly. And he was partly responsible in making of the film The Black Prince. Right, Bobby? Partly responsible. Marvelous film. Bobby has in his books referred to Maharaja Ranjit Singh, his descendants, and other prominent persons emanating from Punjab. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to say that I have a historic connection with Punjab, particularly the city of Amritsar. I was born and brought up in East Africa, but my father came from the grand city of Amritsar. I have found that my family is connected with the city of Amritsar going back to 1812. We are Punjabis, and we speak Punjabi. And although Bobby is born here, but he speaks excellent Punjabi, undoubtedly. And whenever I talk to Bobby, I like to speak in Punjabi. We must be proud of our language. I think it's a lovely language, Punjabi. Punjabi is in fact spoken by over 110 million people in India, in Pakistan, and in fact all over the world. Before the pandemic, I used to go to Punjab, particularly Amritsar, once a year. I find the people of Amritsar are very friendly and hospitable. And I get 6, 7 invitation. Oh ji, Sheikh Sahab aao, cha piyo, lunch khao, pani piyo. So that is the spirit of people of Amritsar, hospitable and very kind. Talking about Maharaja Ranjit Singh, I would like to say that my first book, as has been mentioned, was on the life and times of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, which I titled The Emperor of Five Rivers. Punjab means a land of 5 rivers. And this is undivided Punjab. Undoubtedly, it's been carved up here, but we are all Punjabis after all. It doesn't matter which side of the border you're coming from. With the help of Lady Sheikh, who is here with me today, I undertook research for the book in the United Kingdom and Amritsar with meticulous care. And the book, I'm pleased, has been very well received. The book contains some details of Sikhism and the 10 gurus, which the readers have very much appreciated. The book has done well, and in fact, we have sold the first lot of the print, and we are now doing the second print. And every penny earned from the sale of the book is going to a charity which looks after orphans, undoubtedly. And I think this is very important. Seva is which is in our blood, really. Now, in 1801, at the age of just 20, Ranjit Singh became the Maharaja of the Sikh Empire, and subsequently, he became one of the greatest figures in the history of India. And one of the great things about the Maharaja was that he was fair to all his subjects, undoubtedly. And I think the book is something we got to learn from what the Maharaja believed in. He was aptly called Sher-e-Punjab, which means the Lion of Punjab. Bobby Singh's book, The Punjab Chiefs, is profoundly dedicated, Bobby, that's right, to the 550th birth celebration of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. That is, in fact, if you look at the book, that's on the initial pages. The right, Bobby, really something you acknowledge, you pay dedication to Guru Nanak Dev Ji. As I've stated, I've studied Sikhism, and I like to say that what Guru Nanak Dev Ji has said and preached has relevance to all the communities, whatever your religion is. And one of the most essential teaching of Guru Nanak Dev Ji was his belief in brotherhood and equality. He said that everyone is equal, irrespective of whatever he may be. He taught people to work honestly. Work is important, but we need to work honestly and look after the needy and perform seva. He stood for the rights of women and he gave them equality. And he said something like, how can you not love a person who gives birth to the kings? And one of the companions of Guru Nanak Dev Ji was Mardana, who was a Muslim, and he accompanied Guruji on his visit to Makkah and Medina. I've been brought up to respect all religions, which is what I do. I believe that we are children of one God. Our approach may be different, but we are children of one God. Now, I would like to talk more about Bobby's book, The Punjab Chiefs. I would like to congratulate and commend Bobby on writing what I would like to say a very grand book. The book is a formidable publication which meticulously sets out the pedigree and details of the noble and distinguished families whose ancestor served Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And I think what Amrit said earlier on, the book has 531 pages, a formidable book. 532? 532. And the print of the book and the paper is absolutely first class. So you produced a publication of quality, Bobby. Really, it is quality, undoubtedly. It contains 250 photographs of the descendants of the Punjab aristocrats, and Bobby has sought out the family trees. Some of these families they've worked very hard at producing, and think of the information you have gathered, meticulously gathered, undoubtedly, and that, I think, would be very, very useful for people to know where the families are. Now, I'm sure, Bobby, and you said that earlier on, I don't know how many families you spoke to, but you must have interviewed numerous families. Now, Bobby, the families must have trust in you and had confidence in you for them to give a lot of private information to you. So you won their confidence, and I'll commend you on what you have done. I understand, Bobby, it took you 5 years to undertake research for the book. And in your book, you even pay homage to your chauffeur. Indeed, absolutely. So you're being even very fair to your driver. Goes to show the quality in you, Bobby. And you, I'm sure, Bobby, you must be satisfied with what you have achieved. And the book will be read by people now and generations to come. The book, I believe, honestly, and I think Baroness had referred to that, will be used as a reference by people who want to know more about the aristocratic families and their descendants. The book will also find a place in a number of libraries around the world. So what I like to do, Bobby, is present the book to the House of Lords Library. It must stay in the library so people can refer to it to find out more information. The book begins with the lineage of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and has details of the Maharaja's families which have been very carefully tabulated. And I looked at the book and I knew the sum of sons of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, but I like to say it by looking at the book, I was able to find who his father, I knew who the father was, his grandfather, and his great-grandfather. It also has details of Maharaja Singh's sons, Karak Singh, Sher Singh, and understand you're wearing a tie of Sher Singh, yes, right? Yeah. Isha Singh, Tara Singh, Multana Singh, Kashmira Singh, Pashura Singh, and of course, Dilip Singh. Well, we all know about Maharaja Dilip Singh and his two wives, but we don't know the names of all the other sons. So it's important, therefore, for us to learn about the sons of the other sons of the Maharaja. And I think we must pay tribute to one of Maharaja Dilip Singh's granddaughter, who was Princess Sophia, who was very much involved in the suffragette movement. In fact, I understand, Lady Sheikh was telling me that she even sold her jewelry to promote and fund the suffragettes. Not recognized. And my sister Baroness was saying she would like a program on women who have been great in the Indian history, and I think we should pay tribute to Princess Sophia Dilip Singh. The book sets out the history and details of 62 families, right? It starts with the house of Alwarpur. Sorry, it starts with the house of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Then it goes to house of Alwarpur. And then it ends up with the house of Viglia. It has been mentioned earlier on, I think Sharma ji mentioned that, it includes Sikh, Hindu, and Muslim families. And looking at the book, there is a Mans of Mughal Chak is included. And I just wonder, Amrit, whether you belong to that house. Something which I'm sure Bobby can find out for you if you're interested in your family history. But there is the Mans of Chak, Mughal Chak, is that right? So I would like to conclude by saying to Bobby that you have done very well in writing, researching, and publishing this book. Bobby, I don't wear a hat. If I did, I will take it off to you. Now, finally, I'd like to say I'm very pleased to be back at the Nehru Center. I launched my book titled In Indian House in the Nehru Center only 3 weeks ago, and we raised nearly 4,500 on the night. And I'd like to thank Amish Trapaji, Mr. Sharmaji, and Pranjula Singh for all their efforts, and Pranjula is there, found her extremely helpful. Thank you for the support and help you give to the people who want to work here. And I've received confirmation, Sardar Hardyalji, that they're happy for us to do an event on Baba Bulle Shah, and we will do so, inshallah, in autumn. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Lord Sheikh. Thank you for your inspiring words. I'd like now next to call upon, let's get my notes ready. I'd like to now call upon Dr. Jared Chopra, whose family appears in the Punjab chiefs as descendants of the rulers of Multan from the house of Aghalkar. And Dr. Chopra is a Cambridge-educated international lawyer who has served as a senior official of the United Nations and the World Bank. He was the architect of post-Cold War peace operations, having developed the doctrine for multinational use of force, adopted by the UK, by the USA, NATO, and UN forces, and transitional administration of territory by the UN. He has served in over a dozen peace operations in more than a dozen locations worldwide, including East Timor, Palestine, Somalia, and Eritrea. Doctor.
Baroness Verma, Lord Sheikh, distinguished author Bobby Singh Bansal, who's responsible for bringing us here together at this historic occasion, which is historic not only because of the launch of the book, but because we've been talking to each other for more than a dozen years, and this is the first time we've actually had the opportunity to meet. So it's historic. Thank you for your gracious comments, MC, Deputy Director Sharma, Director Mr. Tripathi in absentia. First, let me express my gratitude to the Indian High Commission for hosting this event, and also obviously to Bobby for bringing us together. As I mentioned, I've been talking to Bobby for more than a dozen years. I think you were working on the Ferengis of the court of Ranjit Singh at the time, and then he moved on to remnants of the Sikh Empire, and I think I gave you a photograph which probably was not even a remnant, perhaps a shadow of a remnant that appears in the book. And then he contacted me more than 5 years ago now with his ambitions for bringing down to the present day the antecedents of what's called the Punjab chiefs, also called the Punjab chiefs. And we had an exchange, well, quite a number of exchanges about that at the time, some of which I would like to reflect now. Because I knew this would be a very complicated, I more than many others would know how complicated this would be and how difficult this would be, and he's been quite heroic, because he's thrown off his protective gear and crawled through the minefield of genealogies, which is very difficult indeed and very sensitive. But to understand why it's complicated, you need to understand what these antecedents were, what these preceding documents were. These were genealogies that were mapped, and they came in 3 different editions, effectively, with a number of ancillary publications. The first one in 1865, called the Punjab Chiefs, under the principal author, Sir Lepel Griffin, who was, if you read about him, is kind of a foppish dandy who showed up in India, but was a secretary to government, and he took on this task of mapping genealogies. It was updated in 1890 under the title Biographical and Historical Notices of the Punjab Chiefs, and then there was a much bigger updating, which was published in 1940, 3 volumes, called The Chiefs and Families of Note of the Punjab. Now, the project of doing that then and the project that Bobby took on are fundamentally different in many ways, as similar as it is in terms of the work that is undertook. But the agendas at play were entirely different. Why were these genealogies mapped at that time? What was the agenda behind it? It was not to glorify these powerful families that had just been conquered following the annexation of the Punjab. The agenda behind it was very different. You have to remember that this was occurring against the backdrop of the consolidation of British power in the Punjab, in which there were things like the doctrine of lapse. Now, the doctrine of lapse was something that preceded the annexation of the Punjab by a few years, but it is very much associated with it because the Governor-General, Dalhousie, is the one who implemented it most vigorously. And what this policy did was to interfere with inheritance rights. So it basically said that if there is not a male heir, or if there is mismanagement in the opinion of British authorities, then the estates belonging to these families would considered have lapsed in ownership and therefore could be taken by the new authorities. So this was about consolidating physical power after military conquest, economic power, and this was followed then by this project of the mapping of genealogies, which was in a way about the conquest of memory. So if you look very closely at these genealogies, they have not really been done in good faith. They are filtering these families to determine who is loyal to the British, who has fought for the British, and who has not. And if you look at three fundamental sources, you can begin to understand how this story plays out. And of course, it will play out very differently if your family has fought for the British and is remaining loyal to the British, or if your family, as was the case in my family, was the lightning rod of opposition to the British and was at the center of the Second Anglo-Sikh War, then this is not a very subtle process. So we have three sources, as I say. One is these encyclopedic texts which come to us in a very digestible format, as big as they may be, because they are structured, they are in English, and they're published. The second source has to do with family records. And for many of the families of the Punjab, this would mean the potis at Hardwar. So Hardwar being a holy city, where the Ganges leaves the Himalayas, people still go there to bathe at the Ghats, but also this is a place where people would have gone to record births, deaths, marriages, lineages, relationships, and historical stories. So if you go there, it's actually quite an extraordinary system, and you ask, say, okay, this is my family from this village, and then the pundit will come and he'll say, okay,